Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Cody Rhodes is ready to do some farming. Let's get it on.
A while back, I made a video about how the current megastar of the farming game genre, Stardew Valley, stands on the shoulders of the giant that is Harvest Moon. That video was all about looking towards the past, but this video is all about looking towards the future. Today we're talking about a brand new, very promising 2.5D farming sim indie game called Cornucopia. Now, on the topic of Stardew Valley, Cornucopia feels like it has drawn some pretty heavy inspiration from Concerned Ape's magnum opus, but is that really a bad thing? A lot of people love Stardew Valley, myself included, and having another game that feels like Stardew is always exciting to me. After all, Stardew Valley began its own life as a fan remake of Harvest Moon. The cycle of influence continues. But as you'll see throughout the video, it is still a very original and innovative piece of work. Cornucopia, in my eyes, is the next pivotal step in the evolution of the farming life sim genre. It's got the foundations that other games like Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon have set in place, but it branches outside of that scope, delivering a very deep and robust experience. Now, I know I'm talking about this game like it's gonna save your life or something, and to be clear, it's not. But it's a really great game that I've thoroughly enjoyed. That said, I do want to be transparent here and let you know that I was indeed gifted this game by its development team, Subconscious Games. But I can assure you that there will be no bias going into this. I genuinely love this game, but I can also admit it's not perfect either. There's still a lot of room to grow in some areas. Of course, the game is still in early access, and updates have been pouring in even as I was writing this review. So it'll be exciting to see where the game goes from here. But that's enough rambling from me. Let's check this thing out. So you start the game off by creating your character. Pretty simplistic, but there's still a lot you can do here to make the character your own. After you finish that, you're treated to some cutscenes explaining this new world and what your role in it will be. You get some tutorial stuff, and then it's off to the races. The general gameplay loop here is very much what you would expect from these types of games. You have a yearly schedule to keep an eye on, with the 4 seasons playing a very important role in many of the game's mechanics. In this game, your objective is to complete quests, build relationships with the townsfolk, uncover the stories the world has to offer, explore the mines and defeat its creepy crawlies, and most importantly, grow your farming empire. Which, by the way, the farming in this game does something really interesting that I've not seen before. The soil in which you plant your seeds is way more complex than what you're probably used to. In Cornucopia, you will actually need to analyze the minerals available in your soil. If a particular spot on the ground is not ideal for your plant, it may not grow. It's up to the player to treat the soil in various ways to ensure the cultivation of a quality crop. It's a really neat system. And also, on the topic of the mines again, if you've played Stardew Valley, you'll know exactly what to expect here. You break rocks and defeat enemies until you can manage to uncover the ladder that leads you down to the next level. But once again, Cornucopia adds its own new twist to the mechanic. The mines are very much a 3D space. After all, it is a 2.5D game. That 0.5 was bound to come into play eventually. In the mines, you can explore left to right as well as forward to back, and even up and down. That's right, this game has platforming. Scaling the walls of these mines and hopping along obstacles will lead you to extra treasures. And the platforming's not just for the mines either. You can jump anywhere in the game world you want with a simple press of a button. It can be pretty fun using this in other characters' homes to try and reach places you're not really supposed to be. It can be a little too easy actually to get your character stuck this way, but hey, don't worry. The developers added this really handy stuck button in the menu. If you press it, your character respawns high up in whatever building you're in, allowing you to glide back down to safety. Oh, and there's this really cool pet mechanic. You can keep your farm animals as little companion pets who follow you around. They even aid you in combat like real RPG followers. The way they follow you around is so cute too. It's like I'm back in the 2000s playing Pokemon Heart Gold on the school bus. I love this little chicken guy. I named him Bingo. Aww. There's also this whole scratch card system that can be pretty interesting. At first, I was a little hesitant about the idea, given its immediate resemblance to things like loot boxes. However, there's no real gambling aspect at play here. It's just like this. Throughout the game's world, you'll discover scratch cards as you play the game. You can then open them up and use your mouse to scratch off the cute little designs to find out what you won. It's a really satisfying mechanic, and adds a lot of depth to the gameplay. You can use these cards to unlock new cooking abilities, boost a particular skill, or even enhance your ability to bond with a certain character for a limited time. There's a lot of things you can do with these, so it's a lot of fun to play around with. It's worth noting though that the actual controls for the game work well enough on keyboard and mouse, but they're not very intuitive on controller. A lot of the actions are mapped to buttons that one wouldn't normally think to map them to. For example, in order to switch inventory tabs on the controller, you press in on the analog stick instead of using one of the shoulder buttons, even though sorting through your current inventory tab is mapped to the shoulder buttons. There's also a lot of actions throughout the game that require a mouse cursor. These are still possible via the right analog stick, but doing it this way is a little clunky and slow. So maybe these issues don't matter so much to you, but if they do, I would just stick to keyboard and mouse. I would be remiss not to acknowledge some of the really nice quality of life features the game has to offer though. So I'm typically a pretty busy guy, meaning that games that make you play so much of the game before being able to save and turn it off are usually not an option for me. That said, I never have this problem while playing Cornucopia because in this game, you can save at any time, anywhere, so long as there's no enemies nearby. Another really cool feature is how the game handles a full inventory while you're out exploring. When you're out of inventory slots, instead of being forced to pick and choose the most important items, the game simply sends each new item directly to your storage shed back home. I know some people will say that this removes a bit of the challenge from the game, but honestly, I'm all for it. Inventory management can get stressful fast in these kinds of games, and doing things this way keeps me from having to stop everything just to organize my stuff. The art style in this game is gorgeous. The combination of beautifully drawn pixel art alongside the 3D environments makes the old eyeballs very happy. The visuals kind of remind me of the older Paper Mario games. The way the characters are completely flat in this 3D space is very reminiscent of those games. I mean, look, the characters even turn like they're made of paper. It also kind of looks a lot like those free wallpapers that are included with your download of the Smappy mod asset for Stardew Valley, which is awesome. I always kind of wondered what Stardew might look like if the game was like that, and now I think we kind of have an idea. Shout out to Blue Casters on DeviantArt, by the way. They're the original artist of those old Stardew Valley wallpapers, and the art there is just absolutely gorgeous. I just wanted to put that out there. Cornucopia also uses a lot of very vibrant particle effects. For instance, when a player levels up a skill, giant fireworks go off over your head. They really help to make the game look truly and uniquely beautiful. But it is worth noting that they can also be very bright and flashy, so if you're someone who's sensitive to that, you may want to proceed with caution. Moving on to the sound design, I have got to shout out the artist who created the soundtrack for this game, Pontus Hultgren, because the music in this game is fantastic. The mood is always set very well, and there's some catchy little boots in here too. A lot of the tracks put me in mind of old 90s JRPG soundtracks, which, if you're familiar with those old games, yeah, the soundtrack is really good. Finally, let's get into the story and world of this game. I'm not going to give you too much, just a little taste. So, in Cornucopia, you play as a forgotten hero who, 100 years ago, was involved in a disaster. You see, there exists in this world a magical cornucopia that once protected the town. But 100 years ago, the cave which held this secret horn caved in, trapping the protagonist and the cornucopia, rendering the two as nothing more than old history, buried to time. In the present day, your character has been rescued from the cave, and they seemingly haven't aged a bit. Now it's up to you to rescue this magical treasure and protect the town once again. The main story here is great, but where this game really shines, in my opinion, is in the side stories. Side stories are copious in this game. Or should I say, cornucopious.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If you're like me, then the main draw that keeps you coming back to a game like Stardew Valley or Story of Seasons is the slowly unfolding story beats that you receive through occasional, seemingly randomly timed cutscenes. If that's your thing, then this game is for you. These things happen constantly, and the characters are wonderfully vibrant and filled with personality. Each of them has their own life going on separate from the player, and their stories intertwine with each other's seamlessly. This makes the world feel alive and fresh, like the protagonist doesn't even have to be there for it to survive as its own beautiful story. Even the actual text itself is uniquely charming, as it dances and changes colors to match the flow of conversation. There are also a ton of characters, by the way, more than I've ever seen in any other game in the genre. At this festival in the game, where I counted 40 characters, I was informed that not everyone had even showed up. This game is huge. And honestly, that's the best way to wrap up my thoughts on Cornucopia. The game is huge. Everywhere you look, there's a new mechanic that you can dive into, a new area to explore, even more NPCs to meet and befriend. The farming game genre has become pretty oversaturated following the hype of Stardew Valley, but Cornucopia stands out from the crowd. It's a very good game, and there's not a single doubt in my mind that this thing's gonna be a huge success. Will it be the next Stardew Valley? Right now there's no real way to tell for sure, but I believe that all the tools are in place. In any case, I would definitely recommend checking this game out. But that's all the time I've got. I've got to get back to playing Cornucopia on my Windows PC. I'll see you later.